As the golden age of piracy draws to a bloody close, alone ship battles a raging, unforgiving storm. Through the blinding rain and crashing waves, dark silhouettes scramble to keep the battered vessel afloat. The deck is pure chaos, with desperate crew members slipping as they frantically try to control the massive steering wheel. Down below, a terrified mutineer hastily shoves a handful of stolen gold coins into a hidden chest. But his treachery is discovered, instantly sparking a vicious, point-blank gunfight in the cramped and dimly lit quarters. Thick smoke fills the air as men turn on each other, leaving dead bodies scattered across the blood-stained floorboards. Meanwhile, an intimidating pirate captain stands tall at the bow of a massive pursuing ship, closing in on his deceitful prey. After violently overtaking the mutineers, he cruelly interrogates a tied-up survivor while holding up a piece of the recovered treasure. He closely inspects the marked gold coin, realizing that his long-lost, most prized possession is finally within reach. Consulting a weathered map and a stained ledger, the ruthless leader uncovers the exact origin of the stolen loot. With revenge burning in his eyes, he immediately orders his crew to set a new, deadly course for Cayman Brac. Days later, the camera reveals the tranquil, green cliffs of Cayman Brac, an isolated island completely unaware of the impending doom. On the peaceful shore, local men go about their daily routines, casually repairing a humble fishing boat named Kirkconnell. Inside the small village church, an elderly priest leads his devout congregation in a heartfelt prayer for their loved ones at sea. Standing high on a rugged cliff, a beautiful woman anxiously scans the vast ocean with a brass spyglass. Lowering the glass with a heavy sigh, she slowly walks back through a sun-drenched field of tall sugarcane. She returns to her rustic wooden home, where a portrait of her missing husband still hangs prominently on the wall. Inside the bedroom, her oldest daughter frustratedly fastens her dress while staring longingly out the window at the empty horizon. Her younger brother tries to lift her spirits, but the exhausting tension of waiting for their father is clearly wearing on them. The mother reaches the front yard, pulling the wooden gate shut behind her with an air of quiet resignation. In a dimly lit corner of the house, her youngest, disabled daughter lies in bed, struggling slightly to get up. As the family's pet goat wanders the yard, the mother steps inside, trying desperately to maintain a sense of normalcy. She quickly grabs a thick cloth to pull a boiling, intensely smoking pot of stew off the hot cooking fire. Moving to the bedroom, she gently helps the disabled girl sit up and firmly secure her heavy wooden crutches. The young girl asks innocent questions about her father's delayed ship, causing the mother to struggle with her own growing anxiety. Despite offering comforting words, the lingering sadness in the mother's eyes reveals that she secretly fears the absolute worst. Frustrated by the endless waiting, the older daughter secretly begins packing a small bag, determined to leave the island. The mother catches her in the act, sparking a bitter argument over the father's constant absence and countless broken promises. The rebellious teenager refuses to listen, claiming she will not waste her entire youth trapped on this tiny, isolated island. Storming off in a huff, the girl leaves her mother standing alone, completely overwhelmed by the fracturing of her family. Trying to release her mounting stress, the mother aggressively sharpens a large, deadly machete on a heavy spinning grindstone. Later that evening, the strained family gathers around a single flickering candle to share a very modest, silent dinner. Outside, massive storm clouds quickly swallow the fading sunset, casting a dark, ominous shadow over the violently crashing ocean waves. Using the cover of absolute darkness, a small rowboat filled with heavily armed pirates stealthily approaches the island. Completely unaware, the disabled girl is still awake, quietly reading a worn book about infamous, bloodthirsty pirates. Her mother gently scolds her for reading such terrifying tales right before bed, warning that they will only cause nightmares. But the girl ignores the warning, excitedly showing her mother a strange, ornate dagger that her father had supposedly left behind. As the mother reaches for the weapon, she spots a fresh, bloody cut on her young daughter's fragile arm. Horrified by the dangerous artifact, the mother immediately confiscates the blade, realizing it belongs to a much darker world. Elsewhere in the dimly lit house, the older daughter quietly sits at her desk, penning a heartfelt farewell letter. At that exact moment, the teenage boy wanders near the rocky shore and runs straight into a terrifying, cloaked stranger. Oblivious to the danger outside, the mother sits alone in a cold bathtub, letting the water wash over her scarred body. She closes her eyes tightly, haunted by vivid memories of her past life and the ruthless enemies she thought she had escaped. Preparing to flee the island, the older daughter sneaks quietly into the bedroom to kiss her sleeping sister goodbye. The exhausted mother finally falls asleep, completely unaware that heavily armed intruders have successfully breached the island's shores. But she is suddenly jolted awake by the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps creeping across the wooden porch outside. Heart pounding in her chest, she slips out of bed and cautiously peers through the narrow cracks of the wooden shutters. Through the tiny gaps, she sees the terrifying silhouettes of armed pirates surrounding her home in the dead of night. Knowing exactly what they have come for, she silently rushes into the bedroom to wake her disabled youngest daughter. Lifting a heavy floorboard, she quickly hides the trembling child in the dark, dusty crawl space beneath the house. With her child safely concealed, she frantically rummages through a heavy wooden chest to retrieve her hidden, loaded rifle. She drops to her knees in the dark hallway, aiming the massive weapon squarely at the violently rattling front door. Swinging the rifle around as a window shatters, she desperately prepares to fight off the overwhelming swarm of ruthless intruders. She holds her ground in the shadows, her finger trembling on the trigger as the wooden door finally bursts open. A vicious brawl instantly ensues as she kicks and punches her attackers, desperately trying to protect her hidden daughter. Despite her fierce resistance, the overwhelming number of heavily armed pirates quickly pin her to the blood-stained wooden floor. A brutal man grabs her by the hair, pressing a heavy pistol hard against her throat to force her complete submission. Gagging and gasping for air, she watches helplessly as the ruthless men systematically tear her entire house apart. Ripping her husband's portrait from the wall, they finally uncover a hidden compartment containing the sought-after stolen treasure. The terrified mother is violently thrown against the dining table, surrounded by the very men she had spent years hiding from. A massive pirate forcefully pins her head to the table, ensuring she cannot move as the captain steps into the light. The scarred pirate captain demands to know the exact whereabouts of her missing husband, tossing her brutally against the wall. The hidden girl cowers in the dusty crawl space below, forced to quietly watch her mother suffer in absolute terror. Crawling desperately on the floor, the mother cries out in sudden pain as a heavy pirate boot stomps on her hand. The captain kneels intimately beside her, sneering as he picks up the shiny piece of cursed gold that led him here. The battered woman stares up at the ruthless leader, realizing that the bloodthirsty monsters of her past have truly returned. As dawn breaks, a small rowboat makes its way toward the island, while the massive pirate ship sits ominously anchored offshore. The captain casually strolls down the wooden dock, watching the terrified villagers cower under the watchful eyes of his brutal crew. Unfazed by the hostile takeover, an older village man calmly steps forward to confront the terrifying captain and demand an explanation. In the background, cruel pirates violently butcher a massive sea turtle, making it perfectly clear they intend to stay. The village elder firmly insists that Cayman Brac is a peaceful, emancipated British colony, and wants absolutely no part in their war. The pirate captain simply chuckles, ignoring the warning and boldly declaring that his dark authority supersedes any distant empire. He makes his terrifying agenda abundantly clear. He is an emissary of the sea, here to extract a heavy toll from his enemies. The elder listens in grim silence as the captain promises to turn the entire island to ash if he is resisted. Not far away, the older daughter, seen hiding among the rocks, realizing her desperate plan to escape has been thwarted. Back on the beach, a pirate gleefully plays a jaunty tune on a stolen violin, adding a twisted soundtrack to the nightmare. Desperately scanning the horizon with a spyglass, a villager searches for any sign of a passing British naval ship to save them. Climbing onto a high barrel, another man blows a massive conch shell horn, hoping the shrill sound will serve as a warning. But the pirate captain remains entirely unbothered, glaring at the elder with dead eyes to prove his absolute, undeniable control. More rowboats filled with heavily armed men push aggressively toward the shore, completely sealing the tragic fate of the isolated island. Standing face to face with an unyielding villager, the pirate leader issues a chilling threat that sets the tense standoff in motion. As the village church bell tolls an urgent warning, panicked women and children rush inside seeking desperate sanctuary from the invaders. On the shore, brave defenders scramble to load a makeshift cannon, while the smug captain prepares his own deadly countermeasure. The invaders draw nearer, prompting frantic locals to grab rifles from a wooden crate to form a desperate front line. Their cannon finally fires with a deafening blast, but the massive recoil violently throws the untrained gunner backward onto the sand. Meanwhile, inside a ransacked cabin, a brutal mercenary overpowers a fierce woman, pinning her to the floor as she fights back. With sadistic glee, the attacker strings her up by the neck, mocking her agonizing struggle to breathe as she dangles midair. He pulls a knife with a wicked glare, completely unaware that a terrified child is watching from beneath the wooden floorboards. Drawing upon her last ounce of strength, the resilient woman manages to grip the rope and temporarily relieve the choking pressure. Breaking completely free from the deadly noose, she regains her footing and prepares to unleash her fury upon the towering brute. A violent, close-quarter struggle immediately erupts inside the cramped room as she fiercely wrestles a heavily armed pirate for her life. While she fights indoors, the ruthless pirate captain slaughters the unprepared defenders on the beach with terrifying and effortless precision. Back in the cabin, she lands a powerful kick against her attacker and scrambles behind a flipped wooden table for cover. The hidden child remains paralyzed by fear in the shadows, unable to look away as the deadly brawl escalates above her. Despite taking severe blows, the woman refuses to back down, fiercely overpowering the giant mercenary to protect her home and family. Outside on the bloodstained shoreline, a defeated villager crawls through the shallow water in utter despair as the island fully falls. The pirate captain continues his unstoppable rampage, easily dodging frantic attacks and cutting down anyone who dares to oppose his rule. Inside the ruined house, the exhausted and blooded woman finally subdues her assailant, leaving him incapacitated on the wooden floor. Spotting a survivor trying to flee the carnage, the captain immediately sprints across the sand to hunt down his escaping prey. He effortlessly overpowers the fleeing men and casually cleans his blade, proving the absolute dominance of his invading pirate crew. Desperate for retaliation, a wounded villager frantically attempts to reload the cannon, hoping to fire one final shot at the conquerors. But just as the fuse is lit, the captain casually snuffs it out, extinguishing their very last spark of hope forever. Crawling out onto the porch, the battered woman is immediately ambushed by another massive pirate eager to finish her off. Fueled by pure adrenaline, she grabs a heavy conch shell and violently bashes her new attacker to secure her grueling survival. Barely able to stand, she looks around at the burning landscape, finally realizing the sheer, horrific scale of the island's destruction. More heavily armed pirate reinforcements storm the beach, leaping aggressively from their rowboats to ensure no villager escapes the slaughter. Meanwhile, a young girl sprints desperately through the chaotic village, trying to find a safe hiding spot from the advancing horde. She takes cover inside a wooden shed with her loyal dog, while the captain calmly surveys his newly conquered territory outside. Strolling confidently through the aftermath, he instructs his men to secure the shoreline and strip the dead of their valuable belongings. One of his ruthless crewmen spots movement in the distance and immediately shoots a fleeing villager in the back without hesitation. The captain turns his attention to the defeated elder, laughing mockingly at the foolish idea that a naval fleet would save them. To completely crush the old man's spirit, the pirate leader forces him to his knees in front of his entire crew. He barks further orders to his men, ensuring that any remaining survivors are rounded up and subjected to his cruel dominance. Despite the elder's desperate pleas, the captain nearly sneers, cementing his terrifying victory over the once peaceful island sanctuary. With the beach secure, the invaders now set their sights on the church, knowing the surviving families are hiding helplessly inside. The broken elder bows his head, in profound despair, finally accepting that his beloved community has been entirely wiped out. Kneeling helplessly before the ruthless conqueror, he can do nothing but await the tragic, inevitable fate of his fallen people.